Call the meeting to order and welcome everyone to the September 3rd, 2024 City of Kalispell Council meeting. Can I have a roll call, please?
Counselor Nunnally. Counselor Carlson.
Here.
Counselor Gabrielle.
Here.
Counselor Graham. Counselor Dowd.
Here.
Counselor Dahlman. Counselor Fisher.
Here.
Counselor Hunter.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Mr. Hunter, can you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have our agenda in front of us. I'll look to council for approval. Mr. Dowd.
Your Honor, I move the agenda as published.
Second. Second. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. All in favor signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. 3 items on the consent agenda this evening. The first item are the council minutes from the August 19th and August 26th meetings. The second item is award fire department pumper. This item considers awarding E1 fire apparatus for the bid of a fire engine pumper. And the third item is award 2 Chevrolet trucks for the fire department. This item considers awarding Corwin Motors of Kalispell the bid for these trucks. There any public comment on anything on the consent agenda this evening? Look to council for a motion. Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. I move the consent agenda be approved as published.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. All in favor of the motion signify by stating aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Motion carries. No committee report this evening, so at this point in time, I'm going to open the meeting for public comment on items not on the agenda. Individuals are asked to step forward, give your name, and give your comments to the council at this time.
My name is Paul Travis. I live at 264 White Pine Road here in Kalispell. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm here on behalf of my organization, Flathead Land Trust, a local nonprofit organization who is working on a really exciting project with a couple other organizations, Trust for Public Land and the Foys to Blacktail Trails organization, to purchase and protect 1,100 acres directly adjacent to Heron Park, just south of Heron Park. It's a contiguous block of land. It's within 5 miles of Kalispell. I'm sure many of you folks are quite familiar with it. It includes rolling forest land, prominent ridge line, which is visible from much of the valley, including Kalispell. Our objective as partners on this project is to purchase a conservation easement on the priority forest lands, permanently prohibiting subdivision and development while complementing existing recreation and habitat management, which occurs on the adjacent protected lands. Foys to Blacktail Trails, nonprofit, intends to be the long-term owner of the restricted fee title land. The land right now is currently owned by Griffith Family Foundation, which is a family foundation of Southern Pines Plantations. They are a willing seller. They've been working with the partners for at least about 1.5 years or so to see if we can get this purchase done. So some of the benefits. So first of all, this property has critical importance to the community of Kalispell as it's easily accessible front country recreation used by, I heard a number recently as far as Heron Park goes, 1,000 people per day. The benefits also include free public access for hunting, biking, wildlife viewing, and other non-commercial outdoor recreational uses. It protects habitat for a wide range of signature species, including moose, elk, deer, turkey, mountain lion, the occasional grizzly bear, and black bear. It complements county growth policy, prioritizing the protection of private property rights while maintaining and promoting working forest landscapes and a recreation infrastructure. And this in turn protects the local economies and the way of life of nearby communities, which includes Kalispell. It maintains private ownership of the property, allowing current and future landowners the ability to manage these lands for vital forest and recreation uses. Protects water quality. It includes the headwaters of Birch Creek and includes some of the headwaters of Ashley Creek as well. And it maintains the local tax base. Property remains in private ownership and is taxed as such. This project is supported by, already been supported by the Flathead County Commissioners, Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, the Confederated Salish and Kootenai Tribes, F.H. Soltz Land and Lumber, who are adjacent landowners, Kalispell Chamber of Commerce, among others. So tonight I'm asking the City Council for a letter of support as we submit for a grant proposal through the Forest Legacy Program, which is a USDA federal grant program. And I would appreciate the support of the project.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Any other public comment? Anybody online? Okay. I'm going to close public comment. Move on to the first action item this evening, which is Gardner Anderson Ranch Annexation Zoning and Combined Planned Unit Development Overlay. This item considers a PUD that includes annexation of 6.5 acres at 2995 Highway 93 South with zoning of B5 industrial business and annexation of 30.8 acres at 330 Demersville Road with zoning of R3 residential. The PUD overlay also includes 57.1 acres zoned B5 PUD between United Drive and Lower Valley Road. We'll have three items on this: Resolution 6224, which is the Gardner annexation, then Resolution 6225, which is Anderson annexation, and then Ordinance 1926. This would be the first reading for the PUD. I'm going to ask for a staff presentation on all three items and then public comment on all three items, and then we'll take each one successively to act on those at the council level. Mr. Russell, presentation.
Hey, Mayor and Council, and I'll turn it over to PJ Sorensen, our Assistant Director of Development Services, to deliver the staff report.
All right. Thank you, Mayor, Council. This report regards a request from Todd Gardner and Colton Bear for the Gardner Anderson Ranch Planned Unit Development, which includes applications for the annexation of approximately 6.5 acres of land at 2995 Highway 93 South with an initial zoning designation of B5, and that's right in that area right there, which is industrial business. Annexation of approximately 30.8 acres of land at 330 Demersville Road with an initial zoning designation of R3 residential, which is generally in this area. And a PUD overlay on both of those areas along with land that's currently within the city limits, stretching along United Drive up to Lower Valley and out to the highway. That is currently zoned B5 PUD, be between United Drive, Lower Valley Road. That totals approximately 94.4 acres. The area already annexed is subject to a placeholder PUD, which does not have a detailed PUD plan, and that limits the development without a full PUD approval. The proposed PUD would expand the PUD area and replace the PUD placeholder with a full PUD overlay. In general, the plan would allow B5 development on 63.7 acres in the area between United Drive and Lower Valley along the highway, and would allow R3 residential development on the remaining 30.8 acres. The proposal does not include a preliminary plat, and that would be reviewed at a later date. And this is just kind of showing the same layout here. We've got the Gardner annexation in this area that's not in pink, right up along the highway. The Anderson Ranch one, which is kind of fronting just on this little stretch along Demersville Road, but kind of connects the existing area to that. And then this area right through here in pink and running down United Drive to the storage units is the area that's already within the city. They're applying for these together in large part because they're really closely related in terms of infrastructure, in terms of particularly stormwater, road infrastructure, and sewer system. This is showing the Gardner property and the Anderson property. The development would generally go forward in three phases. The first one's the distribution and fulfillment center, which would need to stand alone. It would be in this location right here, which is shown as lot 19. It's just north of the existing auction barn. Improvements for that development would need to run from United Drive, an extension of United Drive, and then bringing that road out to the highway at that point. Specifics of the utilities for that lot would be reviewed with the building permit. And just as a side note, that lot's being created with boundary line adjustment through a certificate of survey rather than through a plat. The second general phase is the B5 commercial area, which is again mostly this area on the west. There is a stormwater pond in this area right through here on the north end. That's going to be relocated down into this slough area on the south end of the residential area, which would open up the possibility of the development of these lots. I'd also note that there would be a 20-foot landscape corridor pursuant to our entrance corridor standards that would be along the highway. The existing United Drive should be improved along with this phase 2 area or when redevelopment occurs on the east side of United Drive. And then the third phase would be the Anderson Ranch area, which again is the residential area off on the east. In just terms of the overall street layout while we've got this up, there's kind of two main axes that come through. There would be the extension of United, which would be the north-south, and then a new road that would be an east-west that would also connect to a traffic signal at that intersection with the highway. The current zoning of the property that's in the city is B2 with the PUD placeholder. In the county, it's I1H and SAG5. As far as the growth policy, most of the commercial area is shown as urban mixed use, which supports the B5 area. The remainder is a commercial designation. And then the Anderson Ranch residential area is suburban residential, which supports the R3 that's being requested. Most of the property in the overall PUD was already annexed, and the two areas to be annexed are within the annexation boundary. The R3 area is a little bit more straightforward in that it is directly supported by the growth policy designation. On the commercial side, it's a little bit of a mix in that we've got the urban mixed use and the commercial. Commercial generally is more of a B2 general business area and not the B5 industrial. But it's important to note that the growth policy is not in itself a regulation. It's a policy document that guides regulation. And the map designations shouldn't be viewed as fixed lines on the map, and the appropriate zoning district for the property as a whole should be based on the growth policy map designations as well as the nature of the existing use of the property and the existing county zoning that's in place. And under both the city and county zoning, B5 zoning matches the existing condition more closely than a general commercial district. In addition, the growth policy encourages a variety of residential development that provides housing for all sectors and income levels within the community. And taking into account the growth policy map, existing county zoning, and the existing use, the requested B5 and R3 zones would substantially comply with the growth policy. The subject property is also located within the Highway 93 South Corridor Area Plan, which was adopted by the council in 2008. Relevant portions of the plan as they relate to this proposed development would include the following. One, to utilize the PUD process to address access signage and other issues to protect and preserve the community entrance to Kalispell. And that's exactly what the applicant is doing in this situation. Second would be to allow development in areas with availability of public services, and public services are available in this area. Third is maintaining free-flowing traffic on 93 by minimizing access points, providing a grid street system, and providing north-south roads parallel to the highway with the goal of reducing direct access and eliminating traffic signals if possible. Here, the road infrastructure is designed to minimize the access points onto the highway. Internally includes a grid street system with interconnectivity to adjoining properties and includes a north-south road parallel to the highway, which allows traffic to move towards those common planned access points. While the plan does call for the additional traffic signal south of Cemetery Road, the signal would serve as a focal point for development on both sides of the highway along a 0.6 of a mile stretch. The development on the west side of the highway is called Siderius Commons and encompasses 207 acres of mixed commercial and residential development between Cemetery Road and the bypass. Also, the traffic signal, along with the internal road infrastructure and new Collector Street, would allow for the potential reduction of existing accesses onto the highway and improve the traffic flow and safety of the highway corridor. Next was promoting industrial-based jobs and businesses, which the B5 does. Next was to allow, or that access should be coordinated so as to allow only collector or arterial streets to intersect with 93, along with the judicious use of right-in, right-out approaches, frontage roads, and good internal development street design that would reduce or eliminate the need for direct access. And as noted, the street infrastructure does that in this situation. Next was significant individual business highway exposure. Individual access points and pole signage should not be the norm. Existing regulations relating to the required 20-foot entrance corridor buffers and limited access to the highway would help address this provision. Additionally, signage should be limited with common entrance signs with up to one at the main entrance at the PUD to the PUD from Highway 93 that complies with the sign provisions of the zoning ordinance, with monument signs elsewhere in the development. Specifically, that would be one 6-foot tall, 36 square foot sign maximum per lot, and none within 100 feet of Highway 93 or Lower Valley rights of way in the B5 area. Otherwise, the provisions of the sign ordinance would apply, and the signage plan is generally consistent with other commercial PUDs in the city. Next, billboards should be prohibited in the commercial and residential zones, and existing billboards in those zones should be considered a primary use and phased out. In order to comply with this provision, the existing billboard should be removed as early as possible. With the pending development of the distribution and fulfillment center, the billboard should be removed prior to granting a certificate of occupancy for that use or any other use to the north of the existing United Drive. And last was avoid inappropriate development of general commercial type uses along the highway corridor south of Four Corners in favor of the development of light industrial and e-commerce based businesses instead. As noted above, the B5 area of the PUD, along with the entrance corridor standards and limitations on signage, would encourage light industrial uses rather than general commercial. Additionally, casinos have been a use that have not been encouraged. While accessory casinos are generally allowed in bars and restaurants, standalone casinos have been discouraged, and including a provision that prohibits casinos while potentially allowing accessory casinos would further this provision in a manner consistent with general city policies. The provisions of the 93 South Corridor Area Plan, in addition to the growth policy, support the proposed zoning and the development of quasi-industrial and light industrial type uses on the subject property, subject to design considerations. There were no deviations requested from the zoning or subdivision regulations as part of the PUD at this time, although several may be included as part of the residential side when the plat's reviewed, which would relate to lot size, width, alley, and setbacks. There is a green belt requirement in the general zoning ordinance, which would basically be a 6-foot high view obscuring fence or hedge where the B zone property abuts the R or running right about through there in the project. There's also requirements in the Highway 93 South Corridor Area Plan, which would call for noise reduction measures to reduce that to 60 decibels or less. Public facilities and infrastructure are adequate for the development of the site. Any new improvements to the property, such as roads, storm, water facilities, and water or sewer mains, would be installed in accordance with city policies and standards at the developer's expense. Given that subdivision plats are not part of this application, additional review would be required when plats are submitted that may entail adjustments from the conceptual layout or additional or changed conditions. As it relates to this phasing plan, any infrastructure necessary to support the distribution and fulfillment facility must be installed in conjunction with its development prior to the certificate of occupancy, regardless of the platting status of the property as a whole. Utilities at this point are very conceptual, and again, specifics will be reviewed along with the plats or the distribution center building permit program. There would be a lift station, as I mentioned earlier, in the residential side that would feed up into the commercial side that would serve the commercial side as it was coming down. As far as water, this is showing the basic layout that may need to be looped in order to support the distribution center. Just a couple little notes as far as the water line connecting rather coming off in this direction, coming down through the cul-de-sac, and potentially then closing off a loop in Lower Valley as well. This is showing the stormwater. There's 4 main stormwater basins, I guess, on the site. The existing facility is approximately in this location on the north, but all of those would feed into a new facility that would be running down into this location. The PUD fronts on Highway 93 South, Lower Valley Road, and Demarsville Road. Portions of United Drive are within the PUD and connected to the highway as well. Highway 93 is designated as a major arterial, and both Lower Valley and Demarsville roads are future major collectors in the transportation plan across the project's frontage. In conjunction with the PUD, frontage improvements would not be required. However, each frontage would need to be upgraded to that standard as further development occurs. Internal to the PUD, again, there would be that east-west collector street extending from the intersection at the proposed traffic signal on the highway to Demarsville Road. Other streets would be designated as local streets. Public Works submitted comments that the current conceptual layout, there would be several locations that would require turnarounds, and the alleys in the northeast portion of the residential area should be modified to a more standard local street profile. And the specifics of that design, again, would be reviewed along with the subdivision submittal. United Drive is designated as a future collector, a major collector south of that east-west road, and a minor collector to the north. In general, there are 3 separate aspects of improving United Drive. First, in conjunction with the development of the distribution and fulfillment center, that would extend United Drive to the north and then out to the highway. Full street profile for both those segments would need to be installed prior to the CO for the center. Second, the existing United Drive within the PUD would need to be improved to a major collector standard to the extent possible given the existing road and surrounding development. The road itself is shifted in a manner that does not readily allow for a full sidewalk or boulevard profile on the western side of the road, which is off on the right side of the screen here, adjacent to properties that are not in the PUD. So within the PUD, you've got properties here on the left side of the screen, but not on the right. The width of the existing pavement is sufficient for a major collector, absent a center turn lane. Given the relatively low traffic volume which would access the businesses, and if the street is posted as no parking, the segment can function as a major collector. On the east side of Boulevard, along with the 10-foot path, would serve pedestrian needs with the added width to help accommodate the lack of a sidewalk on the west side. Due to utilities within that corridor, certain areas would require the path to be designed around utility boxes. The improvements would need to extend to the southern extreme of the PUD. The improvement should be installed in conjunction with any platting or development in the B5 area to the north of the existing United Drive, other than the distribution center, or with any development or redevelopment on the east side of United Drive, whichever occurs first, and this segment would need to remain as a private street. It's just showing the basic section that we're looking at there with the existing roadway, landscape boulevard, and then the 10-foot pedestrian path. The third portion of development of United Drive would be to continue from the first extension to Lower Valley as a minor collector. The specifics of the extension would be reviewed with the subdivision plat applicable to that area. There was a draft TIS that was prepared by Able and Traffic Services in May of '24 and was submitted with the application. The TIS was reviewed by a third-party consultant. Recommendations from the review indicated that additional analysis will be necessary as further development occurs, and it would be anticipated that the additional analysis would occur again in conjunction with the future plats. The TIS specified a traffic signal at the new approach onto Highway 93, along with northbound and southbound left turn lanes that would eventually need to be constructed. Generally speaking, additional access points and traffic signals in particular are not encouraged under both city and MDT provisions, including that Highway 93 South Corridor Area Plan and spacing requirements. Given existing and proposed development in the area, and the location of the major collector in the PUD that is part of the transportation plan, the signal is in a logical location. To mitigate the impact of the signal, the full movement at the northern United Drive intersection with the highway should become a restricted access with either a three-quarter movement or a right-in, right-out. A condition of approval should require the restricted movement when the signal is installed if required by MDT. There was a separate TIS that was submitted by Kimley Horn in June of '24, specific to the distribution and fulfillment center. And that TIS is being reviewed as part of the building permit and site review processes. But whether it's part of the PUD subdivisions or building permit, a city standard is that the level of service should be maintained or improved, and that any necessary improvements to accomplish that will need to be implemented. With that, the Kalispell Planning Commission adopted staff report KA 2406, KA 2407, and KPUD 2402 as findings of fact, and forwarded a recommendation to the Kalispell City Council that the properties be annexed with initial zoning of B5 industrial business and R3 residential, and that the PUD for Gardner Anderson Ranch be approved subject to 28 listed conditions. And we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, John. Thank you, PJ, for that presentation. Few questions on this. One, I noticed there's kind of a finger of like 500-year floodplain in there. Is there any concern or risk about development within 500-year floodplain?
No, and that was one of the things that we had talked about with the developer is that, and I guess in the bigger picture, they would be adding additional land to this, probably coming down roughly into this area down through here. That's where the stormwater would go to, potentially some parkland that would go in there as well. And then it would also allow for some of the density shifting that was going on through there. So the overall.
I'm sorry, what do you mean by density shifting going on there?
Oh, well, generally, if you're trying to fit, if you're limited to 4 units per acre, what the PUD process allows you to do is instead of having 6,000 square foot lots just running through there is to take some of that density and shift it off of, in this case, the floodplain that you wouldn't necessarily want to develop. And you'd have the same density on a gross basis overall on the property, but not necessarily when you're looking at specific portions of it.
So not seeing development in the 100-year floodplain to the south by having more development in what we're looking at here.
Correct,
Okay.
yes, yeah.
Okay. And then has there been any assessment in terms of, there's a number of stormwater ponds you pointed out, and the proposal looks like maybe shifting a lot of that to the slough. In terms of the impact on the slough, on the water levels in there, has there been any assessment there? The reason I ask, two questions on that. One is, if the water levels are rising, if they kind of swamp out some of the riparian vegetation on that slough. And then two, it looks like there's a causeway down to the south that is kind of blocking the slough water. But beyond that causeway, the slough continues, it's dry, but it goes all the way to Ashley Creek. So is there any risk of the slough water with this additional stormwater coming in, rising up above that causeway and spilling over and then flowing down into Ashley Creek?
To my knowledge, there isn't. I know they've been working with Public Works on the specific design of that. And so I think that there's an understanding of what exactly needs to go into that to make that function appropriately. But I haven't heard of any type of concern or issues related to that.
It's a concern that has to be analyzed through the engineering analysis, and the applicant's engineer is here and can answer that question as well at that time.
Yeah, I'd be interested if that was looked at. And I know that, part of this is going to be public park, and I imagine landscaping is going to be involved in that if there is loss of riparian vegetation that may be kind of compensated by new landscaping associated with the park, presumably.
There very well could be, and, again, at this point, because we don't have the plats with that, we haven't looked at it at a very detailed level. This is really more establishing what the PUD requirements would be, rather than getting into the plat.
Mm-hmm. And then the buffer on the slough is 100 feet. It looked like, I think I saw a map, but it wasn't mentioned, but it looks like it's 100 feet off the slough.
Yeah, they accounted for that in the conceptual design, but again, we look at the detailed analysis of that with the plat.
Okay. So a few more questions that probably get answered by the plat, but the number of lots in the development, what we're seeing, is that conceptual, or is this kind of the number of lots we're expecting?
I think they're looking to be something pretty close to that, yes.
And how many are we looking at here?
I think there was 170 off the top of my head.
170. Okay. And then again, do we know, are we looking at all single family residential
Or is there any kind of mixed housing in there, or is that to be determined later with a plat?
Well, right now they're looking at single family in there. You know, originally they were looking at some multifamily, but with where some of the market went, I think there was some concern about what that balance is out there with some of the new residential construction, and they opted to switch to single family with that. And we'll see what comes in. But my understanding is that they're moving forward with the single family only at this point.
Is there any value in doing R4 rather than R3 because it allows for more of that mixed housing as an option for flexibility in the future if it does change without kind of CUP having to come in for
Yeah, well, I
townhouses?
mean, the R4 wouldn't allow multifamily in there anyway.
No, I know, but
You know,
duplexes or
it-
townhomes or something.
it could get into something with townhomes, but that wasn't part of what their plan was, and R3 meshes with what they want to do.
And then on the industrial, mentioned the one site with the distribution. Is the rest of it kind of similar industrial, or is there going to be a mix of commercial at all, or is it all?
I don't know that they've determined that yet at all, but it'd be something that would be B5. You know, B5 is like a quasi-industrial type of zone, and that was the general flavor of what they were pushing for, more than a real commercial strip.
Okay. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Okay.
Any other questions for staff? Any public comment on Resolution 6224, 6225, or 19, or Ordinance 1926?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name's Eric Fahey with Sand Surveying, Two Village Loop, Kalispell. And I'm representing Colton Bear, who is doing the Anderson portion of the PUD, and Todd Gardner, who has the Gardner auction and the industrial side of the project. Also with me is Brandon Tice, our civil engineer, who has worked on our sewer, water, stormwater, streets, et cetera. So PJ did an excellent job on the staff report and the analysis. We're in full concurrence with the conditions that he's proposed. This is somewhat of an unusual project, at least for me, in that we've got two landowners that are working together. And basically, these landowners saw the opportunity to work together and engaged us consultants to help them with this project, primarily because we knew that, for example, if we develop the residential side, we would need to get to the highway through the Gardner piece. And the Gardner piece, we knew that the stormwater was kind of an inefficient use of the land. And so the Anderson piece provides a good opportunity to capture that stormwater. And some of it goes there anyway. So essentially this partnership, if you will, kind of works together in promoting the long-range planning of the city. To answer your questions, Mr. Hunter, we are looking at single family, but they're 4,500 square foot lots. So we're looking at really an entry level or starter type, very small home that could have rents or for sale that would capture that local market, kind of that workforce housing that we're struggling to get in town. So that was the goal after we switched from multifamily on the site. And also, we have to comply with the growth policy that only allows us 4 units per acre. So unless there was a growth policy amendment, we couldn't get more than what we're proposing anyway. So that's where we're at. I would be happy to answer any questions, and also Brandon can answer any questions should you have any.
Just that follow up on that question about if you looked at that water impact on the water level of diverting all that stormwater to the slough and the impact on the slough and kind of what happens there with the water.
Well, Brandon can address that better than me, so I'll let him come up and answer that.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Brandon Tice. I'm with Civil Solutions. So regarding stormwater, quite a bit of the site already flows to that pond, but there are areas that do not flow to that pond. So we would be capturing that water, piping it there, treating it before we take it to the slough. We would have to do some groundwater monitoring. We'd have to do some different analysis out there to make sure that we wouldn't be overtopping anything. And if we're in a situation where we would be, we'd have to build it up, make sure that the water's not leaving that area. Right now, it's a closed basin. Demersville to the east doesn't have a culvert under it, so it's kind of like a land bridge. And then likewise to the west, there's another one. As you go to the south, you mentioned about the flow possibly getting to Ashley Creek. There's several places where it's dammed up from old like farming type roads. And then it also kind of builds grade as you go to the south a little bit. So it's an interesting situation where you've got kind of a kettle that's sitting there that's a low depression that could receive the water. But to make sure that we can take all the water, because it's going to be a detention facility, we'll have to do some analysis, follow all the city standards from the Public Works to make sure that our 100-year event can be, safely stored there.
Great, thank you.
If you have any other questions, right here.
Any other public comment? Seeing none, we're going to move on to the first item, Resolution 6224. Council for a motion. Mr. Dowd.
Your Honor, I move resolution number 6224, a resolution to provide for the alterations of the boundaries of the city of Kalispell by including therein as an annexation certain real property described as a tract of land located in section 28, township 28, range 21 west PMM, Flathead County, Montana, and more particularly described as Tract 1 of Certificate of Survey number 2829, accepting therefrom that portion granted to the state of Montana in judgment and final order of condemnation recorded April 24th, 2006 as document number 2006-114-08400, records of Flathead County, Montana, to be known as Gardner Edition number 474, to zone said property in accordance with the Kalispell zoning ordinance and to declare an effective date.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Discussion on the motion. Seeing none, can I have a roll call vote?
Counselor Carlson?
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Dowd?
Aye.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye, motion carries. I will consider Resolution 6225. Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move resolution number 6225, a resolution to provide for the alteration of the boundaries of the city of Kalispell by including therein as annexation certain real property described as a tract of land situated, lying and being in the southeast quarter, northwest quarter, and southwest quarter of Section 28, Township 28, Range 21 West, PMM, Flathead County, Montana, and more particularly described as Tract 1 of Certificate of Survey number 22772, Records of Flathead County, to be known as Anderson Ranch, Edition number 475, to zone said property in accordance with the Kalispell zoning ordinance and to declare an effective date.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Carlson. Discussion on the motion. Have a roll call vote.
Counselor Carlson?
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Dowd?
Aye.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye, motion carries. I'll look at ordinance 1926. Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. I would move ordinance number 1926, an ordinance to amend section 02, official zoning map, City of Kalispell zoning ordinance, ordinance number 1677, by creating a planned unit development overlay to be known as Gardner Anderson Ranch, PUD, over certain real property, more particularly described as 5 tracts of land situated, lying, and being in the south half of the northwest quarter and in the southwest quarter, all of Section 28, Township 28 North, Range 21 West, PMM, Flathead County, Montana, and more particularly described as follows to wit, Tract 1 of Certificate of Survey Number 2829, Records of Flathead County, Montana, Tract 2 of Certificate of Survey Number 14830, Records of Flathead County, Montana, Tract 1 of Certificate of Survey Number 17238, Records of Flathead County, Montana, and Tract 1 of Certificate of Survey Number 22772, Records of Flathead County, Montana, containing 94.426 acres, subject to and together with all appurtenant, whatever that word is, easements of record in accordance with the Kalispell Growth Policy, Planet 2035, and to provide an effective date.
Second.
Second. Ms. Carlson.
Thank you, Your Honor. What is that word?
Was hearing 2, so motion second, discussion on the motion. Mr. Hunter?
Thank you, Your Honor. Saving all my comments for this portion of it. I've been a bit on the fence on this one. Kind of want to explain my thinking here on it. And I guess I'll start with my feeling, long-time feeling, and I think I'm not the only one, of just the fact that South Kalispell being kind of the entrance to our community for a lot of tourists coming in. I've always been concerned about kind of the look of South Kalispell and very much sprawl and low density and stuff, and concerned about doing more of that. And so I've always envisioned future development down there as more mixed use, more pedestrian friendly. At the same time, I recognize that industrial development is not compatible with mixed use, with residential development. So that would not be an option. And industrial use needs to go somewhere. And obviously this makes as much sense as any place for industrial uses in our community. So I have concerns there, but kind of understand with this proposal why it might be different. And then second, as everyone here has heard me say many times, when we get large enough residential development, I really want to see mixed housing types, and prefer not to see single family only, which is the most inefficient form of housing. Though I do appreciate the fact that these are smaller lots, getting more density fit in there with that single family. And I also like to see more housing development south of town, because we have so much of our development at the north of town, and to spread that out a bit and get some of that growth occurring to the south of us within city limits now with the annexations would be good. So I am on the fence of this. I think ultimately I will support it with those concerns noted.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Hunter. Mr. Dowd?
As Representative Ward 4, I'm pretty happy that this is going in. It's always exciting to me when we see growth happen on the south side. And, we are kind of an industrial, like blue collar area of town. And so this fits nicely there, and I appreciate it. The only other comment that I have to make is there's got to be something we can do with the length of this motion. It's ridiculously long. I applaud you for reading it, but there's got to be something where we could just say, hey, look at this other section or something. Anyway, thanks. That's all I had.
Thank you, Mr. Dowd. Mr. Fisher?
As Board 4, I agree completely with what Mr. Dowd said, and also Mr. Hunter's last comments of to take the pressure off everything that we've seen on the north side of town and the issues that we've had up there with safety issues and access. I see this as perfect case scenario for this area. I just think it's It's long overdue, frankly, and the size of the lots, nobody can sit here and say affordable these days, but hopefully it's something that can keep our kids here. It seems appropriate, and it fits this area, in my eyes, perfectly. Perfectly.
Thank you, Mr. Fisher. Ms. Gabriel?
Thank you, Your Honor. Yes, Ward 1 thanks you for the development down on the south end. And especially, I am certain that they have studied the market and know what the market will bear. And I do feel like we are finally at the point where we don't need any more multifamily housing until we fill what we have. So, that I may be off base there, but I think that this is what people are asking for right now. So I think this development is a great spot, great location, although I hate to see that area developed, just like I hate to see every other area that's beautiful and open developed. But I think it's an appropriate use. And I like the development, and I really like the partnership with the two families working together. So thank you for making that happen.
Thank you, Ms. Gabriel. Any other comments? I could go on, but I'm not going to. I'm just going to ask for a roll call vote.
Counselor Carlson?
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Dowd?
Aye.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye, motion carries. Next item, this is a controversial one. Resolution 6226, Starling Phase 4 Preliminary Plat. Just had to make Greg shudder. This item considers a major preliminary subdivision plat with 31 lots and 8.1 acres as part of the Starling Planned Unit Development. This phase is located to the west of existing phases and incorporates extensions of Timberwolf Parkway and August Way. Mr. Russell, presentation.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, again, I'll turn it over to PJ Sorensen, our Assistant Director of Development Services, for the staff report.
All right, thank you, Mayor, Council. Kildare Stratton submitted an application for Starling Phase 4, which is a major preliminary plat on approximately 8.1 acres of land containing a total of 31 lots, as well as a park, roads, and open space. As part of the Starling Planned Unit Development, which overall is an 8-phase, approximately 58-acre residential mixed-use development approved in 2021, located on the west side of Stillwater Road between 4 Mile Drive and Old Reserve Drive. The full section of land was annexed in 2007 with the PUD overlay, which provided for approximately 3,000 residential units and mixed commercial use. That PUD was not developed and was replaced in part with the Starling PUD and the Stillwater Crossing PUD to the south, which is right at the intersection right there. The first 3 phases of Starling have been final platted with construction of new homes and apartment units underway. This plat's a continuation of the conceptual plan that was part of the PUD. It's just the aerial. You can see where there's the water has already been extended. There's the main line coming down on Stillwater. That's already been extended into the first 3 phases. West Side Interceptor was coming through the property in that location. Those utilities have been extended into those earlier phases as well. You can see Glacier High School right off to the north with the bypass just off to the east. It's a shot of the property looking up towards the apartments that are under construction there. The property is zoned RA1 with that PUD overlay. The growth policy designates it as urban residential. The existing zoning is consistent with the growth policy, and rezoning is not necessary for this project. This is kind of showing the overall phase 1 through 8 layout. Phases 1 through 3 we're coming down through here. Phase 4 is in the center, and then 5 through 8 would be the remaining area that's coming off to the west. As far as access to the property, there would be 2 extensions of existing roads, Timberwolf Parkway, which would be the collector running into the development, and August Way on the south end of this phase. Able and Traffic Services prepared a traffic impact study in August of 21 for the project. A memo from Able and dated July of 24 stated that the conclusions remain valid. The TIS concluded that Starling will increase, quote, will increase traffic volumes on the surrounding road network, but will not require any special roadway improvement to create additional capacity, end quote. And it also noted the need for a crosswalk at the Stillwater Timberwolf intersection. It should be noted that per the city standards for design and construction, development would maintain or improve the existing level of service for the effective roadways rather than simply maintaining an acceptable level of service. Any improvements necessary to maintain the existing level of service would be required as part of the development. The traffic study also addressed the potential need for a roundabout at the intersection of Timberwolf Parkway and Stillwater Road. Per the study, the roundabout's not required at this time, but the intersection will eventually require a roundabout, and land for that roundabout was provided for in the phases 1 through 3 plat in that location right there. As part of phases 1 through 3, there was dedication of additional right-of-way for that future roundabout location. Those conditions also required a dedication of right-of-way, but also required a waiver of protest of a special improvement district for the construction of the roundabout. As with the earlier phases, there should be a waiver of protest of an SID for the roundabout construction. This is just zooming in to phase 4, which have 2 subparts, 4A and 4B. Again, it's a natural extension of the roads and utilities. There are the start of 2 VUNRs that were approved that would be extending further to the west with later phases. There's no issues for emergency response, either police or fire. In relation to geology, the overall site's generally flat without any major topographical or geological features limiting development. Based on geotech reports and supporting information from 2007, 2021, 2022, and 2024, the reports are, quote, sufficient for preliminary site evaluation and planning purposes. Additionally, a site-specific geotechnical investigation of Phase 4 is intended to be performed to support engineering design submittal to the City of Kalispell Public Works Department, end quote. Subject to the site-specific report, there are no apparent impediments to development. Stormwater will be addressed through an engineered system to be designed and constructed according to the city standards for design and construction. In relation to parks, the overall PUD plan includes 2 homeowners parks. Phases 1 through 3 included a larger park at 3.1 acres in size, in addition to common areas with walking paths. Subdivision regulations require a minimum of 0.03 acres of parkland per dwelling unit, or 0.93 acres for the lots within Phase 4. The Phase 4 park would encompass the southeast corner of a larger park area, right through there, that will continue to be developed as future phases are completed. The park will include amenities that will be determined during the course of the detailed subdivision design review, and it's anticipated that design would include playground equipment. Additionally, the east-west common areas will include sidewalks that continue the pedestrian connectivity from phases 1 through 3. We did receive some public comment at the public hearing that was primarily related to the existing construction activities, both in terms of noise and trash and so forth. I believe that there were some conversations between the developer and those landowners through their homeowners covenants as to how to better address some of those concerns. With that, the Kalispell Planning Commission adopted staff report KPP 2403 as findings of fact and forwarded a recommendation to the Kalispell City Council that the preliminary plat for Starling Phase 4 be approved subject to 36 listed conditions, and we'd be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for staff? Seeing any public comment?
Eric Mulcahy, Sands Surveying, 2 Village Loop, Kalispell. I'm representing the developers of Starling Phase 4A and 4B. I'd be happy to answer any questions should you guys have any.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Mr. Stratton, you've only been doing this for 16 years or something on here. You sure you're good?
Good evening, Mayor and council members. My name is Greg Stratton, working on the development here with the overall team, and I'm here. I don't really have anything to add to what's been said so far, but I'm glad to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, sir. It's just good to hear the development.
All right.
Look to council for a motion on Resolution 6226. Mr. Dowd.
Your Honor, I move resolution number 6226, a resolution conditionally approving the preliminary plat of Starling Phase 4 described as tract of land situated lying and being in the east half of Section 35, Township 29 North, Range 22 West, PMM, Flathead County, Montana, and is more particularly described on Exhibit A.
Second.
Second. Thank you, Ms. Carlson. Discussion on the motion. I think, Ms. Gabriel.
I just wanted to say, I was here when this project started, and it's great to see it finally coming to fruition, so, nice work.
I think the only comment I was, is, we often talk about developers coming in, leaving, and the issue is development's a long game. And sometimes things don't happen in a year or two, and the perseverance of sticking to it, sticking with the plan, it can be very expensive holding land that long too, or keeping those options going. So just like to remind everybody that this isn't a riskless game as a developer. So with that, let's have a roll call vote.
Counselor Carlson?
Aye.
Counselor Gabrielle?
Aye.
Counselor Dowd?
Aye.
Counselor Fisher?
Aye.
Counselor Hunter?
Aye.
Mayor Johnson?
Aye, motion carries. Mr. Russell, city manager report.
Yeah, Mayor and Council, upcoming schedule for meetings, next work session, next Monday night. Jared will lead a discussion on workforce housing and tax increment financing policies as requested a couple meetings ago. On the 16th, we'll retake up the agenda item on the warming center where it was postponed from a previous meeting almost 60 days ago. And then on the 23rd, we'll likely revisit the lead line replacement and the funding component related to that project. That was kind of determined to be decided later. Outside of that, at the last meeting, is requested that we invite the League of Cities and Towns to come up at a work session and speak to the legislative session coming up and relationship between the league and that legislative process. Have reached out, they've agreed to come up. Probably do it after the resolution platform is adopted by the board of the League of Cities and Towns at the league conference in October. So be still coming forward this fall. Previous meeting discussed establishing a subcommittee to look at trail connection district and some of the components related to that. We had Mr. Hunter agreed to be on that, and since then have reached out to council members Fisher and Graham, who have both willingly agreed to participate. And so the plan with that is every time we've brought that forward, it's been requested, well, we just don't have enough to act upon. So the idea of that subcommittee is really just to identify under any of those related topics, be it trails, connections, sidewalks, or street improvements, what the potential priorities would be, potential funding related to it, and then bring that back for council to discuss potential election, discuss potential policy, whatever you want to do on that. But really just to identify the priorities within there, if you remove the funding from the initial discussion, what are those service levels, apply that funding related to it, bring that back for full council deliberation related to that. So anticipate getting started on that probably towards the end of the month. And the last item, we heard from Flathead Land Trust. Mr. Travis sent council an email with a request for a letter of support. Then reached out to me. I invited him to come to the meeting just to reiterate that for council. So if council has a consensus of support, we can work with the mayor to draft up a draft letter of support. So just look to council if there's kind of a consensus related to that.
Being an employee of the Flathead Land Trust, I have to recuse myself from any consideration there.
I'll vote for him, yes.
Looks like a lot of heads nodding, so we'll go ahead and work with that and get that.
Do I have to sign it? I mean, we've been bit by deed restrictions in the past. We can't develop the golf course, Mr. Hunter.
It's not city property, it's not city property or in city limits, just to be clear.
So yes, we'll provide you a draft letter for signature. That's all I have, Your Honor.
Amy, you have a stamp, right? No, just kidding. Anything from council?
So, Mr. Russell, can you remind us of is it the ribbon cutting or whatever for the park this week?
No, so it's more of just an outreach in the neighborhood,
Oh, okay.
related to the Bibler Family Trust and their portion of the property, as they're looking at just starting to gather community input and design. And like, as you know, they've invited council members to be there for that. So yeah, not a ribbon cutting. They're just kind of starting some of that outreach to seek
And is
community
that
input.
Thursday?
I think it is Thursday, maybe at 5 o'clock.
I'm sorry, I was out of town and I could not find the email. I apologize.
Yeah, Thursday from 5 to 7.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hunter?
Yeah, I may not be here on the 23rd. So in case I'm not, I know the lead line service financing issue, important issue, but I think I made my views pretty clear when we spoke about it last time. So if I'm not, hold over those comments to that meeting.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Hunter.
Yeah.
Anyone else? The only comment I've got, Mr. Hunter, you missed your perfect opportunity. Mayor, this is their private rights. Could have joined Mr. Dowd with that. Anyway, a little bit of fun. Appreciate it. And with that, we're adjourned.